U.S. History students, welcome to the recording for the Week 18 quiz. This is going to include some information from your Week 17 quiz, or from Week 17 in the course as well. So just please remember that there was no Week 17 quiz, it's combined together. As you look through this quiz, you'll see that there are 10 questions. They're worth 2 points each. When you get to the end of your quiz, make sure you click on Submit Quiz so that your instructor can see that you completed the quiz and it will correctly record your grade in the gradebook. Question 1. What did the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution intend to accomplish? Abolish or end slavery throughout the entire United States and its territories, grant citizenship to African Americans and provide equal protection under the law, provide all families of former slaves with 40 acres of farmland and basic farming tools, prevent racial discrimination in voting laws, allowing all African American men to vote. Question 2. The formation of white supremacist groups was one problem for African Americans that began during Reconstruction. What was another? Reducing the size of the federal government, passing of black codes that restricted the rights of African Americans, Jim Crow laws which cut the federal budget that provided aid to many African Americans, or increase of freed slaves moving west. Question 3. How did the Compromise of 1877 end Reconstruction? It guaranteed equal protection for African Americans under the Civil Rights Act. It approved a recount of the 1876 election and eliminated debt of Southern states. It ended Reconstruction by removing federal troops from the South in return for approving Rutherford B. Hayes as president. It prevented the spread of slavery by prohibiting it in all new Western territories. Question 4. How did sharecropping create a cycle of poverty for African Americans in the South? Northern businessmen owned most Southern plantations where African Americans worked and refused to rent land to former slaves. Due to the cycle of poverty and debt that sharecropping created, African American labor was still being taken advantage of by Southern plantation owners. Sharecropping strictly prohibited African Americans from growing crops for themselves and resulted often in mass starvation, or African American sharecroppers were not permitted to purchase land for themselves. Question 5. Which best describes the reason people chose to settle in the West in the late 1800s? An interest in the nature out west, a desire to reduce the Native American population, a severe economic depression in the East, or the desire to start a new life and seek fortunes. Question number 6. Congress passed blank, which provided free and cheap land out west, and it led to the rapid settlement of the Great Plains. The Transcontinental Railroad Act, the Homestead Act of 1862, the Native American Relocation Act, the Forest Reserve Act. Question number 7. Which best describes what life was like for farmers on the plains? Very hard work, long days, crop failures, severe weather, and possibility of losing the farm. Crop failures, 8-hour work days, moderately hard work, very few unexpected setbacks. Many unexpected problems, fairly easy work, mostly successful harvests, or bountiful harvest, pleasant weather year-round, very few setbacks, short work days. Question 8. Which of the following are the names of conflicts where Native Americans were massacred by U.S. soldiers? Broken Arrow and Wooden Grove, Red Cloud and Fort Laramie, Wounded Knee and Sand Creek, or Cracked Timber and Cherry Grove? Which best describes relations between Native Americans and the U.S. government between 1850 and 1880? There was little conflict because Native Americans and American settlers were able to live together peacefully. There was no conflict because no Native people resisted forced relocation to reservations. There was conflict with most Native Americans successfully resisting being forced onto reservations, or there was violent conflict as the U.S. government forced Native Americans onto reservations. Question number 10. A change in policy toward American Indian nations occurred around 1880 when The government decided to exterminate the remaining Native Americans in the West. The government tried to assimilate Indians through education in the Dawes Act. The U.S. Army began to protect Native Americans who wanted to remain on their own land. Or the last option, Congress passed legislation leaving the Indians alone and letting them live anywhere they chose. When you've reached the end of the quiz, click Submit Quiz. Good luck on your quiz.